check. We good? Are we good? Yes. We're good.
All right. Woo! Okay. Some young people out there. That's nice. I like that. All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you all to bear with me for a second. My name is David E. Bradley, Jr., and I'm going to bring you a little bit of information. I'm going to talk to y'all about edumacation. Okay? Now, some of y'all may not know what that means, but I'm going to get into what it means in a minute. But at first, I want to start with a number. And that number is 1.4 trillion. And like, what does that mean? Mr. Bradley, you trying to break our brain? I'm not trying to break your brain. See, that it's a high number. If you feel like you don't understand it, it's okay. It's not because you're young. It's because that number makes no sense. $1.4 trillion is how much student debt exists in the United States. It's a lot of money. That's money that you can't even conceive. If you put that into a house, it would crush the house. Now, I bring that up because this is the sort of thing you're looking for when you're thinking about your future. Now, some of you are in middle school, some of you are in high school, and right now you're just trying to make it from class to class. But this is all leading somewhere. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that that number might have broken your brain, but what you have to understand is that education might be a little bit broken right now. Education is edumacation now. And hopefully, in the course of this discussion, because I would like some feedback, we can kind of change some of that and give you a better, different idea of what education should be and is. So I'm going to start off by reading a definition, a couple definitions actually. The first definition is a Google search. Just type in define education, and this is the first thing that comes up. It says, the process of receiving or giving systematic instruction, especially at a school or university. That seems pretty straightforward. That seems kind of right. Now let's see what they thought of education 100 years ago. Now this is coming from a dictionary from 1927. And I quote, the drawing out of a person's innate talents and abilities by imparting the knowledge of languages, scientific reasoning, history, literature, rhetoric, etc. The channels through which those abilities would flourish and serve. Now, obviously I said that in a very weird British voice because it was a long time ago, but notice the difference between the two definitions. The first is focusing on schooling. And we all know what a school is, right? Right? Now, y'all, everybody's been to a school here, right? I'm gonna need a little feedback. I need to know that you all are with me. A school is a building with teachers, and they stand there and they say stuff to you all day, right? And that's what you think of education. Now, the second definition is more expansive. It has to do with your life. It has to do with your mind. It has to do with your values. The goal being to not only better yourself, but to better society. And that's what people used to think about education. Now, a little history on education, a little history on our school and how they work. Schools work a little differently than they maybe should. About 100, 150 years ago, there was a thing called the Industrial Revolution. People were going into factories. They were leaving farms, going into factories. They were getting new jobs. It was higher paying jobs, higher paying wages. But someone came up with the idea and said, okay, well, we're going to need workers for these factories, so we need to teach these workers. What is the best way of doing it? So they came up with an educational system that basically was designed to create factory workers. And they went to other countries and looked at other models, and essentially what they came up with was a very military style of education. Which you go in, you notice that when you go into a classroom, all the desks are in a row, and then you hear a bell every time you move back and forth. Well, that's because in the factory you would hear a bell, and you go to the line, and then the thing would come across, and then you place the thing on the thing, and then it would come across again, and you just do this. So it became a very robotic thing. Just think about when you're in class, you're almost like a robot, right? Like you're sitting there, and you sometimes you're like, okay, that bell's gonna ring. There you go, I'm going to class now. And that's you. Bell rings again, going to class again. That's your whole day. That is your whole day walking back and forth like a robot. Now, you might do some things in between, talk to your friends. You might even learn something because it's school, right? Well, that might have worked 100 years ago, 150 years ago, but this is a different world. This is a different world that we live in. We have different challenges now. And maybe, just maybe, there's a different way of doing things. It's a different way of looking at education. Now, what can we do to kind of counter this idea, this robotic idea of education? What can we do to kind of get past this? Well, we have to re-educate ourselves on education. We have to change what we think about education. That's why you all are here today. You all are here today to learn. You have taken the first steps in taking control of your own education. Now, middle schoolers, high schoolers, you all, you're kind of getting a little grown. I'm kind of feeling like you know a couple things. You kind of, yeah, I can go to parties now. I can do that. Oh, I just got my driver's license. I might go to the store with our mom. It's gonna be nice. Like, it feels good, right? Right? It feels good when you start doing these things. But along with these different stages in life come responsibilities. And that's where education comes in. Education is not just learning information. It's learning about life. It's learning about these responsibilities. It's about building a foundation. So what do? I'm going to go back to that $1.4 trillion number. Now, the reason I brought that up at the top is because this is one of the big challenges that face young folks. Now, y'all may not see it now, but you will. When I was coming up, they told us, go to college. Get your degree and get a job and everything's going to be all right. Right? That's what they told us. Now, the world changes. Things change. And that doesn't always work. Sometimes the system changes, and sometimes people have different goals. So going to college isn't just about getting a degree anymore. Because things have changed, everybody went and got degrees. People in the workplace are like, well, everybody has a degree, that's not changing anything. Like, we got to find better people. So it's what kind of degree you get. So if you start thinking about college, you got to start thinking about, well, what kind of area am I trying to go into? What am I trying to do with my life? Now, these are questions you need to ask yourself. Which brings me to my final point about education, which is, it's not just an external thing. You have to take responsibility for education on yourself. Now, you can go to school and you can learn from a teacher. I used to be a teacher. And what frustrated me the most about being a teacher was that we had to worry about tests and things like that. How many of you have had to take tests at school? Just raise your hand. You guys love those tests? No. Well, let me tell you a little secret. The teachers don't love them either. Not the good ones. You do not love the test. So what can you do in the classroom if you're stuck doing this test? Well, you may not like this, but you might have to take a little initiative. You might actually have to ask the teacher for something more. They're there to help you. You might have to say, excuse me, Mr. Teacher, this test is nice, but I would like to learn about this thing, or I'd like to learn about that thing, depending on whatever the class is. I want a little bit more information. You might have to go to your parents. They might be busy, but you gotta stay on. Say, Mother, Father, I want some of the information you have. Because you know what they have? They have wisdom. They know things that you do not. And that's a part of your education, that's a part of who you are. And finally, you can use things like the internet. Now, who knows how to use the internet here? I know there's more people. Yeah, we know how to use it. The internet is an incredible source. And some of those things that people go to college for, you can learn on the internet. Trust me, you can find out the history of dodgeball pretty quickly. That's not something you need to major in. You can actually find that out. So you have all these sources on the outside that you can seek that aren't just school. But the final most important thing is what's on the inside. Education from yourself. Now this is something you may have never heard. There's a certain thing that your body does. Your body is built on rewards. There's a system called the seeking system. And within this system, it has a chemical in your brain called dopamine. And whenever you succeed, it gives you kind of like a little hit, a little high. You're like, oh man, I feel so good. Like that good feeling comes from that chemical that comes in your brain when you succeed. And your body responds to that. And when you set a goal and you complete that goal, it releases this chemical, it washes over the system itself, and it becomes stronger. How many of you hit the gym? I see a lot of folks out here. You got gym rats in here? No? Am I the only one? Like I'm just, no? Well, the whole point of going to the gym is you go in there and you break your body down so that it builds back up. Education of the mind is the same thing. You set a goal, and if you achieve that goal, it breaks you down in the process of getting it, but then it washes over and it builds you back up. And here's the beautiful thing about that. The higher the goal, the stronger you get. Now you say, well, Mr. Bradley, what should I make a goal? I can't answer that for you. You've got to answer that for you. How many of you have sat down and asked yourself, what do I want in life? And this is a question grown folks don't even ask themselves. What do I want in life? And the secondary question, how do I get it? Now, you are young and things are fun and great, and that's fine. You know, I'm not telling you to start trying to save the world right now because, you know, you should be children, and that's fine. But even as children, you guys kind of have an idea what's going on. You kind of know yourselves. Listen to yourself. You'll find out there's a voice inside that starts talking to you. Like, it's kind of like, we know what a conscience is. It tells us not to do this because that's bad. Well, that conscience is much more than that. It can also tell us what to do that is good. It can tell us how to get there. So if you just take some time every day and just listen to yourself, you can actually educate yourself. And for those of you who might be religious in the building, you might hear God step in and say a couple things too. So you need to clear your mind and let that come to you. Unfortunately, that's going to mean putting down the video games, putting down the phone, you know, maybe not hanging out with your friends a little bit. But if you just take a little time each day to think on what it is that you want, then the path starts opening up to education. That edumacation, that broken thing that you have to go through every day in the classroom and being a robot, suddenly that thing changes. No longer is education about a teacher standing at the front of the classroom telling you what to do. Education becomes a foundation for yourself. Education becomes a continual process that builds you up and builds your community up. And no longer do you have edumacation, you have edumication. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you guys ready to learn?
Yes!
Now, that doesn't sound right. I said, you all ready to learn?
Yes!
What are you here to do?
Learn!
Be empowered, yes. You're here to educate yourselves. As I said, this is the first step. You came here, maybe your parents brought you here, but you're here to learn. So when you go through those classes today, remember the things that I've said. Open your mind to them. There's going to be points where you get a little bored. There's going to be points where your mind's going to wander, but don't let that happen. Because the education that you receive is limited by you. There's nothing that I can do or any of the instructors can do to put things in your head. You have to be able to receive them. You are the ones who have to make something of them. So I'm going to need you all to stand up. I know y'all been standing all this like, they got to stand up again. I thought we were supposed to be learning things, not exercising. This is not what I signed up for. I want you to stand up. And I want you to think about that feeling that you had standing up. Just feel your body for a second. Now, in the process of standing up, your body did some things. I want you to start paying attention to that. Pay attention to your body, pay attention to your mind, and open yourself up to more education. Thank you very much. I'm David C. Bradley. You all are beautiful. Give it up for Stevie. Okay.